Tony Datino doing my Live with Tony on Monday, September 12th. God, the days go by so quickly. I know September 11th is a day I certainly will remember. I was only but a few streets away from the World Trade Towers at 7 a.m. that morning and decided not to go to breakfast in the World Trade Towers, but to go home as I had just finished a nighttime workshop with the New York City Transit Authority supervisors and decided to go home instead of going to the World Trade Center. In any case, it's Monday, September 12th, and the good news was the Giants did win yesterday, surprisingly so. And today's Live with Tony is going to be on an event at the USA Memory Championship, October 1st, coming up faster than we can watch the days go off the calendar. And it's going to be Words to Remember. So it's an event where we give the mental athletes, this is the first event where we actually eliminate some people. So we start with 13, we want to eliminate 3, and we give them 15 minutes to remember 300 words. So off they go off stage, and they've got this list of words. I'm going to give you a little demonstration of those words, and I'm only going to give you 5 words and then demonstrate at least a technique that many of the mental athletes use, and it's called the loci method of retaining or remembering. So the first word I want you to remember is cards. Cards, C-A-R-D-S. I want you to then remember the word pillow, pillow. Then the word paper, paper. The word wallet, W-A-L-L-E-T, wallet, and then the word pen. Now, this is just a short list, but I want to demonstrate the technique. If I give most people these 5 words, I would expect most of you to be able to remember all 5. If not, it's okay. In our mental athletes, you give them 300. They need a system of some sort. And so the system we give them, or at least many of them use, and we say we give them, it's been around for hundreds of years, it's called the loci method of memory, or subsequently named the Roman room method, since it was in a Roman room where some damage was done, where the speaker needed to remember the order of who was sitting at the table when he was speaking. And so it's a Roman room at the time, but it's a room, and it could be a room in your house. So I've given you 5 words that I want you to remember, and I'm going to at least demonstrate to you how you might go about remembering those 5 words. So the first thing I want you to do is let's create some anchors in a room. So in this particular room, I'm going to use this window. Now I could use the window pane and the shade. So I'm going to start with the pane and the shade, and I get 2 anchors out of that. So anchor 1 would be the pane, and anchor 2 would be the shade. Now we walk around the room, and I'm looking for objects on the wall, and here I have this painting, this picture of the Newport Bridge in Providence, Rhode Island. So now we have a 3rd anchor, which is a bridge, the beautiful sunset. We go over to here. We have a picture of the love of Evelyn's life, Bob Walsh, and his wife, Alicia. That's anchor number 4. And then last but not least, we can go over here and we can look at this TV set, which is not on at this point in time since I'm doing my Live with Tony, and we have our 5th anchor. So the first thing we have to remember coming to the memory competition is how many words do we wish to remember. And therefore, that's how many anchors I need to plan in advance in order to be able to establish an association connection between my anchors, which was my pane, my shade, my picture of a bridge, the picture of Bob and Alicia, and the TV. Those are my anchors. So I need to remember, if I want to remember 100 words, I need to come to the competition with 100 anchors. Why? Because I'm going to take the words off the list and I'm going to link them to an object that I could close my eyes and see the pane, the shade, the picture of the bridge, the picture of Bob and Alicia, and the television. Got to have those down. You can do that in any room in your house. And I could keep going along and I could create another 10 or 12, 15 anchors walking around the walls or things that are stable as my anchors. So now what am I going to do with the anchors? I'm going to create a story. I'm going to take the word cards and I'm going to picture a deck of cards. So I picture a deck of cards. In this case, I have a deck of cards. And what am I going to do with that deck of cards? I'm going to take that deck of cards, and I'm going to bang it against the window pane. And you know what's going to happen? Throwing those cards against the window pane is going to shatter the window panes, and the cards are going to just all show up in the suits of Ace of Hearts to King of Hearts, will now be faced against the pane of the glass. So when I think of the pane of the glass, what do I think of? Cards. I think of cards. Now I go to the shade, and I look at that shade, and I think of a nice big fluffy pillow, as it's an accordion shade. So I make up a silly story about the word pillow against the shade. So I can even visualize a pillow if I want. I can use the pillow in my bed, but the word pillow now is sitting up in the shade, and I actually can picture that's my sleeping pillow on the shade. So now I see cards that were on the bottom of the pane. I see a pillow now as the closing item on the window pane. Now, what was my third word? It's paper. Paper. It's a sheet of paper. Just a plain old sheet of paper. And I take that paper and I can see it against the bridge. In fact, I see reams of paper hanging down off the bridge. Silly, exaggerated, doesn't have to be real, doesn't have to be, it can be funny, it can be imagination at its best in creating paper, reams of paper coming off the bridge in that beautiful sunset. So now what do? When I look at the window pane, what do I think of? I had cards, A, B, C, Ace, King, Queen, and there was my pillow. Now I have paper hanging down off the Newport Bridge. Now, what was my fourth word? I was going to talk about the word wallet. Well, I look at Bob and Alicia, and I say, my goodness, I think of Bob and Alicia, and they live in Newport, Rhode Island, and I say, God, it takes lots of money. Open up your wallet and start taking out the money. Wow, start taking out the money. So what do I think of there? Wallet, with money in my wallet. And last but not least, I look at the television set and I imagine that it's one of these TVs we used to write on when I was a kid. You could write on these screens you'd buy and write and you'd get clues. So I'm writing with my pen on the TV screen. So now I close my eyes and I think about my anchors, and I see my anchors, the window pane, and here was the deck of cards. I look at the shade above it and I can easily think of the pillow. I look over to the bridge and there were the reams of paper coming down. I look over at Bob and Alicia and there's a wallet and he's opening and he's got lots of money coming out of it. And last but not least, I look over at the television set and I see my pen that I scratched and wrote on top of the pen. And that's what we call the loci method of memory, which is something been around for many, many years. It's a fundamental memory skill that is based on how we link, connect, and associate existing information that we know, which we should know the objects around the room of our house. If we just sat in our living room tonight, closed our eyes, and we just pictured the objects that are around the walls. We don't want to use objects in the middle because if they get moved about, those anchors then may move about with them, and then we may lose our sequence, which is extremely important. And so as we close our eyes and we think of the objects around our walls, and we want to remember a shopping list, or we want to remember key points we learned in a history class or lesson, or key points that we want to remember for a meeting that we're going to, and there are a couple of key points we want to speak to. It requires a little bit of pre-planning in terms of thinking of anchors, and it does require a bit of focus to say, I want to remember these things. They're important for me to remember, and therefore I want to retain them. That's one of our events. In fact, that's our opening event. After we do the rotation matrix of Lumosity for seeding, we start with words to remember. My next broadcast, which may not be Wednesday, I'm hoping to get away for a couple of days, so it may not be Wednesday, it may move over to Friday. My last live with Tony in this sequence will be the infamous deck of cards, and we'll talk about how we go about the double deck or bust. And my last sequence of events for this year's USA Memory Championship, October 1st. Go to USA Memory Championship, go to YouTube. It'll be on from 12 until 4 Eastern Standard Time. You have a good day and a good week. We're off and going. See you on Friday.